I still can't think of it, but the other thing I just thought of is if you have your blued meat and you put it into the ammonia and it goes sort of that sort of purpley into grey, black sort of look, it's obviously reacting with ammonia. You're actually increasing the nitrogen content yet again of the meat. So if it can actually be attacked by the plant, it not only does it have access to the nitrogen of the protein of the meat, it also has access to the ammonia that's capable of sticking to the copper that's stuck to the meat, in a way. In other words, blued proteinaceous material, or lignoprotein, I suppose, in a way. The old Selman Wackman's 1939 lignoprotein theory that sort of didn't get anywhere, I think mainly because of the war. People were too busy thinking about going off to war and all that to actually really make any connections. And of course, some people didn't come back from the war who may have been able to carry on the torch or the idea. So I've never heard my grandfather's voice. So I think that's why David's got my back. He gets that. So most people don't. Because maybe if I had a grandfather, he could have turned up at school in WA and chucked one of the two school bullies off of a very tall building. They're all bungalows over there, or they were demountables and things like that. And said to the other person, right, if you bully me again, you'll be next. And everyone would just put it down to the fact that he was in the war sort of thing, and maybe just taken his one browning point away of being in the war and said, he just went a bit crazy. And everything would have turned back to normal, and I could have got on with life normally, I suppose. So anyway, but it's the people who can see there's something wrong but actually abuse that wrongness, if there's any quotes. They're the evil ones. It's not the people that actually see there is a problem there. It's the people who actually make use of that problem for ulterior, sinister. They are truly evil, those people. They can't sort of back away. They can't. It's like they see a sore and they have to prod it, rather than sticking a band-aid on it or saying, what can we put on this sore? No, they've got to prod and poke around and make the sore worse, or inflame the sore. So but anyway, looks like we're getting towards the end of the journey, and I think everything's going to be tickety-boo, and everyone around the world is going to have a good solid basis. The scientific method has been put on firm foundations, testable foundations, with very simple, get a piece of meat, whack it in a bit of copper sulfate, of the right sort of concentration. I know what the right concentration ought to be from my previous experiments. Cut it nice and thinly, maybe before or after you do it, depends if you've got a slicing machine. Keep it nice and damp on a block or something, foam block. That's another thing that's been tested over time. Or some urea formaldehyde foam blocks. I made that error, or polyurethane foam. I do notice my errors, fellas, and I do try to correct them if I can, when I can, if I get the opportunity to. But there we go. And then we'll see. If this is what's going on, we should. And that could explain why we're having poor germination of seed, because they need that sort of copper signal or trigger there, or something similar to copper there. That tells them, evolutionary wise, that it's okay to germinate because they have the capacity to actually make use of that, whereas other plants can't tolerate the salinity, don't have the ability to actually generate such high levels of sugar in themselves, because they don't have because they can't actually eat the insects for the potassium to actually get themselves up to that sort of level of sugar in themselves. So therefore they don't have the reducing power to actually make use of that locked up soil bacon in quotes. But they can actually either tackle the salt, or they can tackle the phenolics. They can also tackle the copper. So basically they have an armory of tentacles which to tackle the situation out there in the real world. But other plants don't have those built-in abilities, sort of thing. So they can't grow out into these salty, phenolic-y sort of areas. They can't cope with that. They can't actually make use of that. So not only can they not tolerate it, they can't benefit from it. So, but CPs have the ability, and also we should be able to show that that's why other plants grow big in these areas, and maybe they've come from historical areas that have these sort of situations, like the steppes, in Mongolian steppes and things like that, high in locked up nitrogen. They can make use of it. I don't know. Okay, maybe there's some sort of codependency with some other plant that actually attacks the material in the environment, and they just sit next to or in very close proximity or vicinity of that plant, or those little groups of plant, those community plantings, in other words. So like a rhubarb or horseradish, it's not actually getting it directly, it's getting it by some other plant that actually attacks the material. So we'll get to that. Other people can do this work, you know. And science is for anybody, you know. You just got to get off your backside and get out there, and don't be so negative. You know, you keep knocking your head against a brick wall, you know, 40 years or so down the track, you might actually get to crack it, and you won't be a crackpot anymore, because you've hit the jackpot, okay? And you know what you've been striving for, what you saw in the Aussie bush all those years ago when you were a kid. You know, the bush said, yeah, he'll do. He'll just keep going until he gets the answer. He'll die trying, basically. Yeah, he'll do. He can see it. He can see there's something really special going on there in the Aussie bush. And two, he's got the mentality to just plug away, try anything, until he's looking for that in. And of course the in turned out to be the polystyrene, because at 270 nanometers it generates reductive flammable gas. And that explains the solar weave. Now we can go back to the solar weave, because remember, I've got video footage of it reflecting red and green. I mean, plants don't use the green, but the red, that's in that sort of zone. And you go further than that, you've got your 270 nanometers, you see. So, you know, you can see it was actually probably keeping the 270 nanometers out of your greenhouse. So you couldn't actually get the reductive flammable gas. You couldn't grow the organism, and therefore, you know, the plants were struggling, and they didn't get the colour. But as soon as you change your plastic to polythene, let's do this, you get all the colour. And that explains why Donny got all the colour of the plants when he started using polythene. Well, it's a hypothesis of why he got that. We can now start ticking boxes and say, well, that's why. We got some evidence now, you know. We can actually connect the dots, start putting big chunks of the thing together, actually making sense, hopefully. But anyway, we'll get back to this, and hopefully, if the egg still is a reductive protein, we might get a surprise out of this. And if it's anything like that one over there, we might get a surprise within 48 hours, if not sooner. You never know. But then again, this is very fine sand, and therefore it has a large surface area. You know, as I said, the surface area goes up, is it 48 times with every time you halve the grain size or something? Because, you know, a cube has 6 faces, but when you cut it into 4s, it's 6 4s is 24, is it? I don't know. I think we did work it out before. It's not what you think it is anyway, just let's put it that way, you know. Yeah, this camera has a tendency, I keep pointing it at things, but it's really hard than what I'm thinking. I keep missing things. So anyway, we'll see how we go with this, and I think I might just slosh it around now to make sure we cover most of the sand particles in there. Yeah, another trick I learned, once you get the sand moving, it becomes like quicksand, you know. It becomes very mobile. You've got to get it sloshable, and you can get right down to the base of the container. If you're still young and fit like it used to be, you almost can't do it these days. Yeah, almost down to the last centimetre, I think. Well, anyway, okay, that's good enough, I think. Oh, I need a coffee and a good light of Bex and a good lie down now. Okay, we're basically there, fellas, and we'll set that aside and we'll see what happens. Okay, Oh. When we go. Oh, because so far, I don't think we're getting much reduction from this one. So far, we may do, but it's a slow one. But hopefully, this one might even be much faster, and we can then see what happens in the environment. Well, I'm getting a lot of bubbles coming, but I think that's just from shaking it around. But you never know. We'll see. But anyway, this clip's probably coming to an end. Yeah. Well, let's just run the clip out. It's probably easier that way. For historical reasons, I don't know. We'll keep going. What, the more sand we have in there, the more of a reductive environment we'll get, I don't know. We'll see. Okay, it's going to run out fairly shortly. And we're almost at the top. There we go.